Let's begin. We are training today to access the financial aid inquiry pages, which include the CSU FA status page and the awards by aid year. So the document you have in front of you illustrates the first document you have in front of you illustrates the inquiry pages, the CSU FA status page. What we're going to do first is, just in case you don't know how to log into the CS environment, here's how we go about doing that. So when you're into the CSU homepage, you can click on My Coyote. When you click on My Coyote, it will take you to a login screen where you input your EMPL ID and your password. You'll see the administrative tile. Click on the administrative tile, and one of the first things you'll see is the PeopleSoft CS, and that is the environment for financial aid and admissions and records. You click on that, and it will log you into the production environment, and you'll get this main home page. From this home page, you can then navigate to the financial aid inquiry pages you have access to. To get to the CSU FA status page, you click on Main Menu, CSU SA Baseline, the CSU Financial Aid, FA Status, and then the CSU FA Status page. That will take you to the page, and from here you need to type in the student's EMPL ID and the institution, which is always SBCMP, and the aid year. In this first example, we're going to be logging in for SBCMP and the aid year. Now the aid year is always, for financial aid, if it's we'll be looking at the 1920 aid year, and the aid year that you type in would always be the end of that, so it'd be 2020. And then we're able to log into the student, and this is the FA status page that you'll be working on. For this one, what we're going to start with is everything under the FA status title off to the left-hand side of the screen, and this is the basic information, which will be the student's last name, first name, the aid year you're looking at, and always make sure you're working in the correct aid year. Mistakes are very easily made in that. The institution, SBCMP, and you'll notice below that the national ID, campus ID, and date of birth are not there. That is for the protection of the student. Financial aid doesn't put that information out. So when you look up a student, you look them up by the EMPL ID, you will not see their social security or their date of birth, just to protect the student's identity. Below that is this dependency status. Students are either considered dependent or independent. This student here, you'll see, is a dependent student. If it's an independent student, it will say independent with primary EFC. Below that is the EFC status. When you're looking at a student's financial aid, verify that the EFC status says official. If it does not say official, if it says unofficial, the student is not eligible at that time for financial aid. They will not be dispersed any financial aid that they currently have been awarded. The reason it goes from official to unofficial is that the financial aid staff are looking at the application, reviewing it, and making adjustments. And once those adjustments have been certified, the EFC status will then flip back to official. But if it is not official, the student is in a holding pattern until their status changes to official. Below that, you'll see 3 dates: the app date, the CPS date, and the inst date. The app date is the date the student filled out the application, their financial aid application for the aid years. It's the very first time the student filled out the application for the aid year. Students can submit applications multiple times. They can submit corrections to an existing application for the aid year. The app date will always show the very first application date for that academic year. CPS date is the date that the Department of Education received and processed that student's application. That date will be whichever the last financial aid application that we received. So if the student has submitted 4 separate financial aid transactions, the app date will show the first date of the first application. The CPS date will show the date that they processed the most recent application. The in-state or institutional date is the date that CSUSB receives and processes this student's financial aid application. So the student may have applied in this example on October 19th, but we did not receive the application and load it into financial aid system until January 16th. Most likely the student turned in an application originally and did not have the school code for this institution. Below that is the COR status and date. Those are correction statuses. If the staff member at the financial aid office makes a correction on a student, once they complete that correction and get it ready to send out, the EFC status will flip to unofficial. We will send it out to the Department of Education, and it will receive a in-transit status, and there will be a date put in the date section. Once we receive the confirmation back from the Department of Education, the correction status will say accepted, and the EFC status most likely will switch to official, and the student will be ready to move forward in the financial aid process. We're going to move over to the right center of the screen and look at the packaging status summary. And just above that, we're going to look specifically at the packaging status summary. First field you get is aid application status. We want to see active. We do not show a current valid financial aid application for the student. The packaging status. There are different statuses for different students. So this packaging status says completed. If it says completed, we have ran the student through financial aid packaging and they have been awarded some type of financial aid. I have another example of another student that was looked up, and you see the packaging status is flipped to package. This student has not been packaged financial aid, and they are ready to be packaged, but they have not yet been packaged. But going back to the first student, packaging status, it says completed, they have been packaged. The SAP, or satisfactory academic progress, is the student's academic progress determined by the financial aid office, whether or not they meet eligibility requirements. If they are undetermined, means we have not ran satisfactory academic progress for the student. The other two possibilities are meet SAP and not meet SAP. If they meet SAP, then they are eligible for financial aid for that term, currently for that year. If they say not meet, then the student has failed academic progress and they are no longer eligible for financial aid. They have to take steps by contacting the financial aid office, looking at their student portal, reviewing the satisfactory academic progress policy for the campus, and then following anything that they can do to get their status back to meet SAP. Below that is the review status. Review status is if a student has been selected for verification, if their file has been reviewed by a staff member, if they've been packaged. What we're looking for is complete. If it says incomplete, we're still processing that student. We're looking for a complete status in order to show that the student is able to move forward with getting packaged. If they've already been packaged, then move forward with getting dispersed. Below that is the institutional verification status, which we do not use at CSUSB. Or all campuses now have to be federal verification, so we use the verification flag and the verification status, which are the next two fields below that. Verification flag will show if the student was selected for verification and what the status is. This student here was selected for verification, and you can see that their status is they have been completed. The verification status says verified. It will either, if they haven't been completed, the verification status will be select or not select. Packaging plan ID, the next one, is if the student's been packaging, it gives a basic plan itself. And you can see this was a UG, which is an undergrad. They were packaged for fall, winter, and spring. You'll see a PB for post-bac. Could be fall, winter, spring, fall, spring, winter, spring, fall only. There are multiple packaging plans, but these will give you an idea of what the terms that they've been awarded. Below that is a disbursement hold. Currently, we're not active on those. If there is a hold for the student, you would scroll up to the top and you would see In this case, you see a star, which is a positive service indicator, which is not a hold for the student. But if there is a negative sign or a circle with a line through it, that would be a negative service indicator. If you clicked on that, I'll click on this one, and that shows the positive service indicator or the service indicator, and it will show you any service indicators that are available or that are posted for the student. There is none for this student that are negative. That's essentially the packaging status summary. Moving down to the next section are the checklist and communications. Checklists are what the student sees in their student portal as to-dos. If we have an initiated checklist, you'll see in this student's case, they had, looking at the second one, an F20 SVW, which is the 2020 standard verification. The status date on that was 3/8/2019. It is completed. If the status was initiated for this student, then that would keep the student from packaging. It means the student has an active to-do on their MyCoyote. If you see that, point the student in the direction of MyCoyote to look at their to-dos and follow the instructions that they find there. On these, every once in a while, you'll see some of them are active. You can click on the checklist code if it is active, and that will open up a new window and give you information regarding that checklist code and the status of that. But for the most part, what you're interested in looking at is the description and whether or not it's been completed. If they've all been completed, the student is good to go. Below that are communications, which for us, for the most part, are emails. If we notify the student or communicate with the student, we normally do it through email to their CSU email address. And here you can see all the different communications that have been placed for this student and the dates that they have been placed. If you look at the very first one, we completed an email just letting the student know that we received their financial aid application. And you'll notice that the date is 1/29. And if you scroll back up and you look at the date, the institutional date, it was 1/16, which means we contacted the student soon after that to let them know we received their ISER and that they were getting ready to process. We also notified the student on February 20th that they had financial aid missing information letter. Missing information letter could be many different things, but if you notice, you can actually click on it. And if you click on it, it will open up another tab going to the email itself, the email that we sent out. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can look at the view generated communication. And when you click on that, that will open up another box and you can click view. And from there, you will be able to actually see the communication that was sent out to the student and what we were requesting, the hyperlinks that are available to the student and letting the student know what we need to do. So this is something that the student says, I didn't know it said that. You're able to go in and actually look at the email that was sent to the student. Going back to the student, so you can see that on any of these. You can take a look at any of the emails that were sent out. Below that are the comments. Comments are comments that the financial aid staff places on a student's file. These are comments regarding processing that we're doing for the student. And you'll look at the very first one, FVER. But that comment, if you read through that, it'll tell you, we received the verification documents via the front counter, received SV1 along with parents' 2017 1040s, scanned and forwarded to the staff member. And that was on February 28th. On March 8th, you notice that the verification was completed, no changes made to transaction 1. The EFC had just let you know what the status is of that student as they're going through the process. If we requested anything, we should be noting down how we're reviewing and completing that student. Below that is the loan counseling status. But in the loan counseling status, you'll see if they've ever completed a master promissory note or an entrance counseling workshop for student loans, that information will appear here in the loan status. And I believe I have a student here that does show that in 2019, they completed for Stafford loans and entrance counseling, and it was completed on August 18th of 2018. So whenever we receive information that they've completed, we will update the status. Below that is the FA term. FA term are the financial aid terms that we assume the student is going to be enrolled for this academic year. They start at the bottom with the fall, then move up to winter, and then to spring. And if we assume that they're going to be here all 3 terms, you will see all 3 terms. I have an example, this other example that we're showing here. This student only shows 1 term, which means that the student is most likely going to graduate, and they filed a grad check. And once they do that, if term shows that they're only going to be here for fall, then we'll only build fall term. And you can notice that the NSLDS loan year says they're a 4th year. This student is most likely graduating, or hopefully graduating. And so we're only seeing them for 1 term. But back to the first example, this student, as in fall, will be considered a sophomore, and we will assume that they're going to be a junior in spring. We make that assumption based on assume 12 units per term, and if they continue on 12 units per term, then they will be a junior by spring. If they do more units, they'll definitely be a junior by spring. If they do less units, that will be adjusted as their unit enrollment becomes more permanent. We'll see fall, winter, and spring, what their career, undergrad, post-bac, and then the academic plan. The academic plan is a little hard to read, but we're essentially, for financial aid, we're concerned more with the aid year, that the NSLDS loan year, and how many terms that they're going to be here. Below that are student groups. Student groups are used to identify students into different categories. For financial aid purposes, we use them for if a student is going to be a resident assistant, or if they're not receiving loans, or if it is a dream student. You will note student groups here, but it's not strictly for financial aid, as is this example here. Other example, the student has a pause student group, which is a record student group. So you will see records student groups and financial aid student groups listed in this area. But financial aid, for our purposes, we look at whether or not they're resident assistant, veterans, dream students, if they're receiving loans. You'll see that notification listed on there. This is basically inquiry only access, so you'll be able to see this. You really won't be able to modify or adjust anything. This does not answer any questions that you currently have. Then what we recommend is for you to contact the financial aid office, or to have the student step over to the financial aid office or give us a call, and we will be happy to assist the student and let them know what they need to do, or if there's anything we can help them with. That's essentially it for the financial aid status. Once the student has been packaged, if you're granted access, you'll be able to view the student's awards. You do that by staying in the same navigation under the CSU FA status page, but off to the right, you'll see in a tab that says awards by aid year. If you click on this tab that says awards by aid year, it will open up anything that they've been packaged for. Now this student here, you can see that they're set to package, which means they have not been completed. So clicking on awards by aid year, you'll see that it still comes up, but there is no awards there. Taking a look at the first example with this student, you see that the packaging status has been completed and the review status is complete. So you should be, when we click on awards by aid year, you can now see the student's awards. And looking at them from left to right, you get the item type, which is just the numerical identifier for each item, each award item type that we have. The description is the main thing that you're going to be looking at. The student has a Pell Grant. You'll see they have a Cal Grant B estimated, Cal Grant estimated access, and a federal direct student loan. Notice the Cal Grant are estimated. Those are not dispersible item types. Those item types are what we estimate the students are going to be receiving from the California Student Aid Commission. Once we get notification from the California Student Aid Commission and they are in fact eligible for that, we will replace those item types with actual item types. They will say Cal B actual. Next to all these, you'll see the career and what's been offered to the student. These are aid year offered amounts. They're not based on terms right here. This is awards by aid year. So you'll see the student was offered a Pell Grant that's been offered and accepted. What you'll see with the student loans is that the student loans are offered and they're not automatically accepted. The student actually has to go into their My Coyote, to the student portal, to their awards, and accept the loans, because we don't want the students to take loans automatically. We want them to let us know. If they go in and accept the loans, they're always able to reduce the amount of loans they can accept, or they can accept the full amount. They can never increase the amount that we've offered. They can accept up to that amount or reduce it. Then you'll see next to that is authorized and dispersed. You'll be able to track if a student has been dispersed throughout the aid year, and the dispersed field will show a cumulative disbursement amount for fall, winter, and spring. So as they disperse, that total will increase. But if you want to get more detailed and look based on terms, you can look at any one of these awards. If you click on the hyperlink to the right that says award detail. So for the Pell Grant, we'll click on the award detail for that, and this one will break it down by term, how much the student is offered per term, accepted per term, and what are they dispersed for that term. Our terms are fall, winter, and spring, and in order to understand the terms, we'll go back, we'll go back to the financial aid status page, change this up. And so when you're looking at the financial aid term info on the FA status page, you'll see that there are fall, winter, and spring, but the terms on the left-hand side are designated. Fall is 2198, and that is for fall of 19. In order to break down how that works is 2 is always, we're in the 2000s right now, so the 2 is a standard number. That's always 2. 19 is for the calendar year that the term is in. So fall begins in 2019. When fall begins, it will be September of 2019. So that's why the 19 is second and third character in the fall term. 8 is always designated as fall. 2 is always designated as winter. 4 is always designated as spring. So if we move up from 2198 for fall and we go to 2202 for winter 2020, winter begins in January of 2020. That's why the first character is 2, the second and third character are 20, and 2 always says it's winter term. Spring is 2 because it always begins with 2, and spring begins in usually April of 2020. It will begin April 2020 this year, and so the 20 is the second and third characters, and 4 is always spring. So if you just think about it, 8, 2, 4 are our terms. 6 is summer. So if we go back to the awards for this student, you're able to see the awards by detail. And in this case, fall is at the top. So fall, winter, spring award amounts for Pell Grant. You could look at the Cal B, what we assume we're going to be offering, accepting for each term. And you can break it down by term, and you can see actual disbursement amounts for each term as the aid year progresses. That is essentially it.